as I was thinking about, like, where does evil come from? Or where do we give opportunity for evil? And it was interesting. I mean, everybody's read this verse a million times, but it comes from two places. James, who happened to be the brother of Jesus, said that it comes from our own desires, which I think we can identify, right? We have these desires that we know are not positive, or they don't lead to positive places, so they drag us away. It's kind of like little kids, right? If you ever go to the store, they have stuff at the bottom that the kids can see, and it pulls them away. It's like, even we've been talking about these evil people. How do they get kids? With a puppy or candy, right? It drags them away, right? And then these desires, they get our attention. If you go all the way back to Adam and Eve, the Bible says that they listened and they looked before they took. And they listened and they looked before they took. In other words, they were dragged away, and they're like, oh, she even says, wow, that's some good looking fruit. And that's what evil does. It pulls us away. We look, and then we act. And the problem with acting is it leads to death, right? When we ask that question, how did I get here? Why in the world would I have stolen something? It's because we get dragged away, right? We see something that we would like to have. And then once we start to think about how we might get it, and then we do something, and then what we do leads us to consequences that lead to destruction.
Yeah.
And that happens over and over. So when you think about evil, it begins with often a desire. A lot of times people will say, well, it can't be wrong because I desire it. But there are a lot of things that we desire that are destructive. If you think about it, food is good, but if we take too much of it, it's destructive. But the one that got my attention that I hadn't seen before was anger. And there's a lot of talk in the psychological or psychiatry and all that about whether anger is a primary emotion or a secondary emotion. In other words, does it cause or is it the result of? And so they talk about that. But in the scripture, it says lust and deception, foul and abusive language, harsh words, rage, evil behavior, bitterness, and slander, that all of those are birthed out of anger. And then if you read in Ephesians 4:26 and 27, it says, don't sin by letting anger control you. And then it says what people have heard probably their whole life, no matter whether you're a Christ follower or not, is don't let the sun go down on your anger. And what that doesn't mean necessarily don't go to bed without, it just means don't have unresolved anger. Why? Because it's a foothold for the devil. Or you could say it's a foothold for evil. So if all those men that we just talked about, think about it, it begins with anger. And we tend not to see anger in that, you know what I mean? Like anger, I'm just angry.
Right.
But anger has taken the lives of people right here in road rage.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, you desire to get even. I mean, road rage begins with an anger that wants to get even, and then it leads to destruction, whether it's death or jail or a fine or a broken relationship or whatever it is. But you think, what are you angry about? Like, because if I don't deal with my anger, like I can get anger at family, I can get angry at church, I can get angry at God, I can get angry at a lot of things. And what that anger does is it opens a window for evil to enter my life. And I think it's ingenious, how do you say that word?
Ingenious.
That the enemy is able to enter through anger. Because we're often not afraid of anger unless it gets out of control. But you know what I'm saying? And then I was looking at the 4 stages of anger, according to the people who know, all the, like the NIH, the National Institute of Health, all of them list these same stages. And it begins with being annoyed. Anger begins. And what they were saying, these psychologists were saying, is that the quicker you deal with it, the less likely it is to advance. In other words, the unresolved anger is opening a wide window or opening a door and allowing evil into our lives. So the quicker we recognize it and resolve it, the smaller the window. you know, the less likely that evil is going to enter in. Because if you hear all these stories of these serial killers, so many times they have anger with their family, with their parents, or school shooters, right? Their anger, that evil comes out of anger. That's why all the stuff we see online, I think, is really dangerous, because it's opening the door to greater evil.
Yeah.
But it begins with just being annoyed.
Yeah.
Right. And so our annoyances are something to resolve or to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, like, and a lot of times it's with somebody. Right. I'm annoyed at my parents. I'm annoyed at my kids. I'm annoyed at my coworker. I'm annoyed at my pastor. I doubt that ever happens, but let's just say that it does. Okay. Often we don't deal with it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I'm just annoyed. Everybody gets annoyed. In other words, we never talk to the person that's annoying us.
Yeah.
And we never say, you know, Mom, Dad, I wish you'd talk to me differently, or coworker or friend or whatever it is. But if it's not resolved, it goes to being frustrated.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you do that all the time. You're always interrupting me, or you're always doing, right? And so it's you can kind of think of it, it's like opening the door or the window to evil a little bigger. And it destroys marriages, right? Evil destroys marriages. It destroys relationships between kids and parents and kids and coworkers, churches. Churches get destroyed over anger. I have never really realized, I guess, that anger is what opens the window. You know, it's just like, as long as I don't act, right, and just hold it in, I'll be okay. When in reality, what I'm basically doing is I'm standing here with an open window. You know, I'm putting on coats, but the door's open.
Yeah.
You know, and it keeps coming in.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's not even angry with people. I mean, I think it's, you know, we realize how quickly we can get angry in other things. You know what I mean? I've been playing golf recently, and I've realized it's very easy to get angry on the course and not think anything of it. You know what I mean? You're playing, because you're not angry with someone, it doesn't feel detrimental. But I think it's that same window that you're opening, regardless.
That's good.
You know?
Yeah. Because again, annoyed, frustrated, and then you become hostile. Right. This is where you say something that you wish you wouldn't say. This is where you honk your horn when the light turns green and they don't move quick enough. You know,
I honk back when they do that.
Yeah. Well, that's okay.
It's just reminding them I also have a horn.
But become hostile. And then lastly, it's just enraged.
Yeah.
Right. When people do things without even thinking, you know, it's like, and we even recognize this in our court systems, because think about it. There's second-degree murder, which means it wasn't pre-planned. You went into a situation and anger opened the door to evil, and you acted upon it, and it fed that. And so, I just say all that to say, right now we live in a very angry world.
Yeah.
And the election is just a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
And somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose in every race. Every Senate race, every Congress, every mayoral, every amendment, and of course, ultimately the presidential race. And you and I do not want to open the door to evil in our lives. And I think the greatest danger is that most of the time we think that we could never act in an evil way.
Yeah.
So we don't resolve the anger that we have. So spend some time and ask yourself, are you angry? Are you annoyed? Are you frustrated with something or somebody in your life? And how can you resolve that? Who do you need to talk to, right? Do you need to talk to them? How do you need to talk to them? All those kind of things, because if you and I don't resolve it, we're capable of doing things that we would never think we would do.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times pastors have affairs because they're angry at their congregation. And it opens up that door of evil, and they hurt their family. But it's because they're mad at their congregation, because they didn't serve or give or appreciate or whatever it is. And I think, that can happen with the congregation. That can happen at work. So I hadn't thought of it like that. I haven't thought about anger being such a big doorway to evil in my own life.
Yeah. It happens easily. You don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
All those people that we just put up on the screen are real people who at one time were cute kids.
Yeah.
And
most of them. I don't think John Wayne Gacy was a cute kid.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But think about how often do kids get angry?
Yeah.
And do we teach them how to resolve their anger?
Yeah.
I mean, that's such an important skill. If that really is, a foothold to evil, a foothold to the devil, then it's pretty important that we help them deal with that at a young age, so as to slam that door shut on the enemy's desire, on evil's desire to destroy us and the people that we love.
Yeah.
And as a pastor, you get to see it all the time. So let me just encourage you. Anger is not necessarily a sin unless we leave it unresolved and we just try to push it down and hold it down and think we can hold it in. And none of us, right? None of us are strong enough to open a window to evil and then to keep it out of our heart, because it's always pursuing. It's like one of those horror movies, right? It's always knocking on the door. Let me in. Let me in, And it's always waiting to take up residence in our lives. And it does in so many marriages, young people, and businesses, churches. So let's keep the evil out this Halloween. And one way to do that is come hang out with us at Trunk or Treat, because that is an exciting time, and the spirit of joy and fun is there. And it's a great way for us to love on our community.
Yeah.